Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The presidential race remains too close to call, but Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is closing in on securing enough electoral votes to win after news outlets projected him winning two key states in the Midwest, Wisconsin and Michigan. According to the Associated Press, Biden has now secured 264 electoral votes. He will reach the needed 270 if he wins any of the four undecided races: Nevada, where he has a slim lead of less than 8,000 votes; Georgia, where Trump is winning by 18,000 votes, but many tens of thousands of votes have yet to be counted; North Carolina, where Trump is leading by 77,000 votes; or Pennsylvania, where Trump is up by 165,000, but many absentee ballots have still not been counted. Biden briefly spoke on Wednesday.
I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
President Trump made multiple false claims on Wednesday, suggesting Democrats are stealing the election. At one point, Trump wrote on Twitter he was claiming for electoral vote purposes the states of Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Michigan, even as votes are still being counted. The Trump campaign also filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Georgia, and has requested a recount in Wisconsin. On Wednesday, Wisconsin's chief elections official, Megan Wolfe, said Trump's claims of electoral fraud are an insult to election workers.
Anybody's welcome to watch that process. Some of the places even live streamed their tally last night. And so I think that it's insulting to our local election officials to say that yesterday's election was anything but an incredible success.
On Wednesday, dozens of Trump supporters stormed a vote-counting center in Detroit, Michigan, banging on windows and doors behind which election officials were busy counting mail-in ballots. Stop the count! 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 Detroit is a largely African-American city. Meanwhile, another group of Trump protesters gathered in Arizona chanting, "Count the vote." Many of the protesters were openly carrying AR-15 assault rifles and other guns. A local TV news crew said they left the site after a Trump supporter threatened them and said he would find out where they live. While Fox and the Associated Press have called Arizona for Biden, the Trump campaign is hoping to win the state once all votes are counted. Pro-democracy protesters took to the streets in cities across the United States Wednesday, condemning Trump's efforts to steal the election. In Minneapolis, police arrested hundreds of marchers Wednesday night as they flooded Interstate 94. Here in New York, police kettled about 60 marchers at a Manhattan protest and arrested them. Earlier Wednesday, activist Linda Sarsour spoke at a protest outside the New York Public Library.
Today, we demand that every vote is counted. Tomorrow, we organize and we fight regardless of who goes to the White House.
In Maine, Republican Susan Collins has been elected to a fifth U.S. Senate term, defeating Maine's Democratic House Speaker Sarah Gideon. Collins was thought to be vulnerable after she cast a deciding vote to confirm President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, despite sexual assault allegations against him. In Michigan, first-term Democratic Senator Gary Peters appears poised to win his second term in a close race with Republican John James. If Joe Biden wins the presidency, Democrats would need to flip two more Senate seats to retake the majority in the Senate. Their best chances in Georgia, where Republican Senator David Perdue is just over the 50% mark needed to prevent a runoff election against Democrat Jon Ossoff. If Perdue falls below the 50% threshold, that race would head to runoff in January, when Georgia voters will also decide on a second Senate race between Democrat Reverend Raphael Warnock and Senator Kelly Loeffler. House Democrats are discussing whether to replace Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House after Republicans scored unexpected victories Tuesday, cutting into Democrats' majority. That's according to The Hill, which reports two unnamed Congress members have been approaching colleagues and asking them to back House Democratic Caucus Chair Hakeem Jeffries as the next House Speaker. Meanwhile, New Mexico has become the first U.S. state to elect women of color as its entire congressional delegation. Democrat Teresa Leger Fernandez is a supporter of Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. Republican Yvette Herrell is a member of the Cherokee Nation and former state representative in New Mexico's House. They join incumbent Congress member Deb Haaland, who in 2018 became one of the first two Native American women elected to Congress. The United States reported more than 103,000 new coronavirus infections on Wednesday, the highest one-day toll for any nation since the start of the pandemic. 17 states reported record hospitalizations Wednesday, and the U.S. continues to lead the world in COVID-19 deaths, with over 234,000 reported. The U.S. confirmed about 600,000 new cases just in this last week, breaking yet another record. Italy's ordered 4 regions into lockdown to slow community spread of coronavirus, joining Britain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, and other European countries with tough new measures. Kenya's ordered bars and restaurants to close and will ban political gatherings for 2 months as an exponential rise in coronavirus cases threatens to surpass July's peak. In Mexico, hospitals in the northern border city of Ciudad Juarez have reached capacity and began waitlisting patients amidst a surge of COVID-19 cases. Officials have imposed a nightly curfew and ordered the largely U.S.-owned factories known as maquiladoras to close on weekends. Across the border, overtaxed hospitals in El Paso have begun airlifting COVID patients to other cities in Texas. In Denmark, officials have ordered millions of minks to be killed amidst fears the animals are transmitting a mutated strain of the novel coronavirus back to humans. There are fears the new strain could be resistant to vaccines currently under development. A warning to our listeners and viewers, this story includes graphic descriptions of police violence. In Philadelphia, city officials have released body camera footage of the police killing of Walter Wallace Jr., the African-American 27-year-old father who was shot by 2 police officers while having a mental health crisis last week. The video shows police officers Sean Matarazzo and Thomas Munz shooting and killing Wallace as he stands outside his parents' home carrying a knife. A woman in the video can be heard repeatedly saying Wallace is mental as the officers point their guns at him. At one point, Wallace's mother stands between the officers and Wallace. In one video, a male voice can be heard saying, "Shoot him and get him." The officers then fire at least 7 rounds each at Wallace, who falls to the ground. Wallace's mother rushes to him saying, quote, "You killed my son." One of the officers responds, "He was effing chasing us." Wallace never appears to get closer than 10 to 15 feet away from the officers. In Texas, Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody has lost his re-election bid to Democrat Mike Gleason after Chody was indicted on felony charges of evidence tampering related to the police killing of Javier Ambler. Ambler, who is African-American, was tasered to death during a traffic stop in March of 2019 as he told officers, "I have congestive heart failure and I can't breathe." Ambler's death was recorded by the former reality TV show Live PD, but the show's producers never publicly released the footage and later said they had destroyed it at Sheriff Chody's request. Mississippi voters have overwhelmingly approved a ballot measure overturning a Jim Crow-era electoral college provision for determining governors and other elected officials. The 2-step process for selecting statewide office holders has helped preserve white supremacy in Mississippi politics since the law was enacted in 1890. African Americans make up nearly 40% of Mississippi's population. In Missouri, voters have narrowly approved a ballot measure reversing recent changes to the redistricting process that made state legislative races more competitive. Passage of Amendment 3 is a major victory for Missouri Republicans, who are now poised to maintain their supermajority control of the state House and Senate. In Delaware, Democrat Sarah Mcbride has been elected the first openly transgender state senator in the United States, defeating Republican candidate Steve Washington. In 2016, Mcbride became the first openly transgender woman to speak at a major party convention addressing Democrats in Philadelphia.
Will we be a nation where there's only one way to love, only one way to look, and only one way to live? Or will we be a nation where everyone has the freedom to live openly and equally? A nation that's stronger together.
The United States officially withdrew from the landmark Paris Climate Accord on Wednesday, drawing condemnation from governments and environmentalists around the world. This is Japan's top government spokesperson.
The climate change issue is a global challenge and isn't something affecting just a single country. It should be addressed by the entire international community. From that point of view, it's extremely regrettable that the United States is withdrawing from the Paris Agreement now.
Joe Biden has pledged to rejoin the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Accord on his first day in office. On Wednesday, Biden tweeted, quote, "Today, the Trump administration officially left the Paris Climate Agreement, and in exactly 77 days, a Biden administration will rejoin it." And in Madrid, Spain, activists with the climate action group Extinction Rebellion superglued themselves to the ground outside the entrance of the Agriculture Ministry Wednesday, demanding Spain's government do more to protect biodiversity. The activists say climate change and the loss of animal habitat threatens to spark new pandemics around the world.
We demand that measures to really solve this climate crisis are taken because, for example, the coronavirus is basically a problem that derives from climate change. It derives from the fact that little by little we are losing biodiversity, and one of the direct consequences is that we're losing the natural barrier that previously protected us.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I am Amy Goodman in New York with co-host Nermeen Sheikh. Hi, Nermeen.
Good morning, Amy, and welcome to our listeners around the country and around the world.